You're listening to the Web3 Creators Podcast, where we speak to the brightest minds and builders in crypto, DeFi, NFTs, and the metaverse. Our goal is to give you the absolute best tools for building a thriving business in the Web3 space. Now, here's your host, Hernan Arber. Let's start creating.
Hey guys, welcome to the second episode ever of the Web3 Creators Podcast. I am super excited to host with me, nonetheless, that the legends Guy Corem and Alex Romanov. So just before we start the chat, just a little intro for you guys to understand who we're speaking with. Guy Corem is, as he calls it, Kaiser Soze of Beam, or as we call it, the Chief Shilling Officer for Beam. He's CEO and president of DAG Labs, which is a company dedicated to R&D, researching and development DAG protocols.
Was the CEO of DAG Labs?
Right. This is president.
President is okay.
And back in 2013, to understand how the OG level here, he founded Spoondlies, they were selling Bitcoin mining rigs back in 2013. Is that right?
Developing mining ASICs and selling them, and co-founded, not only co-founded and was the first CEO. Later on, there were several iterations of Spoondlies. Right now, the last iteration, the third one, was acquired by Blockstream, and it's now Blockstream IL.
Well, that's a great achievement indeed. And for Alex, guys, he's CTO at Beam. He's running tech there, and he's already been the lead team leader and VP R&D for some of the very prominent tech startups in Israel. So he's been around the block. He's entered crypto much more on the technological side, and we're going to get into Alex's story in just a minute. So, guys, for those of you who don't know, Beam is a confidential cryptocurrency, and they're running their own blockchain, which is almost approaching the 2 million blocks being mined. So that they've been running for a long time. I think 2019 since it went live. And they use the Mimblewimble protocol to ensure the privacy, and they just launched BeamX, which is a confidential DeFi token. So let's get a bit into your story, guys. So whoever wants to kick off, maybe Guy, drive us into how a bit about yourself, your background, how did you get into crypto, and then what drives you?
Okay, so my background once upon a time was technical. I was a device driver and embedded developer. I worked with Alex Romanov, as we call him, Romanov, back in 2009 at a company called Boxy that did streaming, very innovative streaming device, an Israeli company. And my stints there at sorry about that. My stint there was very short at Boxy, but I remember Alex, and we kept in touch. Then in 2010, beginning of 2011, while I was working this time as an employee at Intel, I came across Bitcoin. I read about it at Linux magazine, and I was fascinated by it. I read everything about it, and I told to myself, it's going to be huge. I should buy some. I planned to buy. It was about half a dollar for Bitcoin. So I planned to buy 10,000 worth of Bitcoin, but eventually I didn't, because I didn't know how to explain to the bank why I need to transfer money to Japan to Mt. Gox. Fast forward beginning of 2013, I'm still working at Intel, still bored to death. I'm reading an article at Engadget about the first Bitcoin A6 machine, and I thought to myself, there is an opportunity here. let's do a company. And I team up with people I worked with in Voltaire. And in a few months, we've raised money and rushed to develop our own machines. It started good, but eventually the first iteration was closed in 2016. Then I started to work on what later became Dag Labs and Caspa. The idea was to take two protocols, one of them called Spectre, that give you, it's proof of work based consensus, but it gives you very fast transactions and finality, but still keeping all the decentralization attributes of Bitcoin. It's a protocol that was developed in Israel at Jerusalem, Hebrew Jerusalem University by Aviv Zohar, Yonatan Sopolinsky. So the idea was to take this protocol and combine it with Mimble and get kind of solve all the issues with Bitcoin. Have high throughput, high number of transactions per second, fast finality, close the transaction in few seconds, and low fees and privacy for Mimble. So we started to work on this with Yonatan Sopolinsky in 2017. But at the beginning of 2018, we separated our ways. I kind of let Yoni took the venture and ran with it, and I went back to square one and co-founded Beam with several other people, Romanov and several other people, and I kind of call Romanov to the flag. Let's do that. Until 2018, Alex was not involved in cryptocurrencies. One of the few people in the world that can say, and he's saying that, the first cryptocurrency that he had was the cryptocurrency that he built himself. Not a lot of people can say that. Satoshi can say that. Some other people can say, but a lot of other people, first kind of got exposure to the space, and then might went and build their own cryptocurrency. But
yeah, that's where most cryptocurrencies nowadays start with a fork of some other crypto.
Yes, so we build it ourselves. Now I would try to tell my wife not to call me again and let Romanov speak about himself.
Sure, you can mute and no worries.
I have too many devices to mute, so it's
I can see.
I'm sorry about that.
Alex, what about you, man? Tell us your story. How did it come to be?
Yeah, so thank you very much for having me here. I'm Alex Romanov. So for me, this story actually started long after a guy was already involved in crypto. Actually, in 2018. In the beginning of 2018, I was looking for a new project. I talked to Guy, and that's when this idea of creating a new cryptocurrency based on the Mimble protocol came up. Just as Guy mentioned, I had absolutely no idea. I did not own a single Bitcoin. I was completely ignorant about all of that. So for me, it was kind of a very new and strange concept. Obviously, I've been developing software for the last about 17 years before that, until that point, 16. And I did all kinds of different technological areas, AI, servers, clients, whatever. So yeah, I had a lot of experience, but I didn't know anything about crypto. So when we talked about creating this project, we kind of started with research, and in a moment we will talk about what Mimble is and where it came from. But yeah, it definitely was very new for us. Having said that, I was very lucky at that point in time because I was able to assemble an amazing group of developers. Most of them I knew from previous projects. And the luck was that they were all available and we could start developing very quickly. And in fact, yes, it took us about a little over 9 months. We started officially, the kickoff date was in March, 1st of March, 2018. And on January 3rd, 2019, which was a very historic date because it was a 10-year anniversary of the Bitcoin Genesis block, we launched our mainnet. which was after 4 testnets and an audit. So it was like very interesting period, and that's how it started.
That's amazing. So you were oblivious to crypto and straight from not being in crypto to founding Beam and building the tech. Is that it?
Yes. Yeah.
Great.
So yeah.
No, that's an amazing backstory, guys. So you've been working at Beam so long, and I want to understand, before we get into the concept of privacy and why is it important. So that's going to be a kind of a higher level conversation. Tell a bit what Mimblewimble is and why the funny name and does it truly work and what does it allow for?
Yeah. So. It's actually an amazing story. First of all, just like Bitcoin itself, Mimblewimble protocol was published. It's a kind of a white paper published by an anonymous person. So up to this day, we do not know who this genius person is. And the name Mimblewimble actually comes from the Harry Potter family of stories. It's a name of a spell in the Harry Potter books that prohibits you from disclosing secrets. So it's very appropriate in this way. Also, the pseudonym of the person was also taken from the Harry Potter, books and stories. So it's all of the terminology, and the naming is kind of around this Harry Potter character. However, the white paper itself is absolutely genius. It's a very short, 4 pages only white paper. It was published anonymously, as I mentioned. And the main idea was to try to achieve 2 goals that up until that point were considered kind of opposite one of each other. The first one is to provide confidentiality or privacy to the blockchain. And the second one is to keep the blockchain size small. Now, at that point in time, it was published in 2016, actually, June 2016. And there were already Zcash and Monero, the projects that also implemented privacy protocols, each in their own way. Zcash used zero knowledge, and Monero used a combination of several technologies, ring signatures and shielded addresses. So both of these protocols added a lot of size to the block. So the Bitcoin blockchain was already quite heavy. It scaled up with the number of transactions. And on top of that, the addition of privacy layer expanded this blockchain size even further. And Mimblewimble was the first approach that solved 2 of these issues simultaneously. And the way it was done was actually very clever, because the traditional Bitcoin transactions that, as you know, are implemented in Bitcoin script, this kind of internal language that is running inside Bitcoin that allows you to express those conditions, like this money or this UTXO belongs to this person and things like that, they all were replaced with a very compact and interesting structure that's called Pedersen commitment. I won't go into that because it's very, very technical. But this replacement allowed to solve both issues. One is to encrypt both the value and the fact of the ownership of the transactions. In fact, you completely got rid of a concept called address. There are no addresses in Mimblewimble blockchain, like in Ethereum, in Bitcoin, and most other chains. You have address, which is explicitly written in the blockchain. In Mimblewimble, there is no such thing. And the second is because of the properties, mathematical properties of this cryptographic structure, you could have removed intermediate blocks from validation. So, for example, if I sent you a transaction and you sent it to Guy, it was no longer important that this transaction passed through you. What was important that it started with me and ended with Guy, right? So only the ends of the state were important. So you could actually remove a lot of information from the blockchain while still being able to preserve the complete validation. And the combination of these 2 genius ideas was what attracted Guy's attention and attracted several other people's attention. And that's why we chose this protocol to begin with. And that's what we've done.
That's super interesting, Alex. And I'd love to get into the nitty gritty of how Mimblewimble works. But I want to drive it a bit higher and say and have you guys explain what this protocol has allowed you for, and how you guys have managed to build on Beam not only cryptocurrency, privacy coin, which is most of what privacy currencies do, but you have actually built an application layer on top of it, which allows you to do DeFi and atomic swaps and privately held assets. So can you explain how you guys managed to do that?
Maybe before that, Romanov, please maybe go over all the stuff that we did in Beam beside Mimblewimble, because Mimblewimble was only the entry point.
Yeah. So one of the things that Mimblewimble was kind of different in, because like you don't have addresses, then how do you know where to send funds? The process of creating a transaction initially was interactive, which means that both wallets, the sender and the receiver, should have participated in the creation of the transaction. Now, since this was very different from Bitcoin, Litecoin, or any other Bitcoin fork or most other cryptocurrencies, we needed to develop everything from scratch, which means our own wallets, which we have developed both for desktop platforms and mobile, and we have to.
I still have my mobile Beam wallet.
Yeah, you should upgrade it because it changed a lot since probably you saw it recently. Yeah, and so yeah, we have developed a lot of ecosystem components, the blockchain explorer, and all of the APIs to be integrated into exchanges and payment services. So we did a lot of work around kind of creating this entire ecosystem. And one of the things that we have discovered during this process was that Mimblewimble is very expandable in many different ways. You can add a lot of interesting features on top of that protocol. And the reason it's possible is because inside each Mimblewimble transaction, there is this part which is called transaction kernel, right? So in addition to standard inputs and outputs, like in any UTXO cryptocurrency like Bitcoin, you also have these kernels, and these kernels are signed by both parties, and they remain in the blockchain. They are not removed during this process of compacting the blockchain. And what we have done, am I still here? Yeah.
Yeah, sure. You want to show something on screen, or?
No, it's okay. I just it switched my desktop. So these kernels allowed us to implement several interesting mechanisms, which we used in our more advanced features. So the first was relative time locks that allowed you to create transactions that depend on other transactions in the past. And using this mechanism, we implemented atomic swaps, which are the way to exchange between beams at, let's say, Bitcoin or Ethereum in a completely decentralized and atomic way. So let's say you want to send me Beam and I want to send you Bitcoin in an exchange, and we don't want to trust any third party or any intermediary. So Beam is probably one of the only, I would say, implementations that allow you to do that. Like very few protocols actually allow to do that in a completely decentralized way. So we can do that. And then when we have been developing,
but for a swap to happen, you need some type of oracle or some type of price determination.
No. What you are doing, we agree. You and we agree on the price.
Oh, so you agree on the price beforehand, before the transaction?
Yes. Yeah. In order to make this very easy for our users, we have implemented a marketplace for atomic swaps built inside our wallet. So you don't need to go anywhere. You just open the wallet, and you can create an offer to swap, let's say, Bitcoin for Beam at some price. And whenever somebody accepts this offer, what happens is that there are a series of transactions, quite a complicated design, that lock coins on each chain and then exchange the secrets, and then you unlock them and get them back.
So it's not only atomic swaps, it's also peer-to-peer based atomic swap marketplace. There are several ways to trade in this marketplace. One of them is to use the board. You can post an offer, and then someone later on can come and fulfill this offer one-to-one. It's not an exchange. It's kind of atomic swap OTC trade. I post an offer. I want to sell, or I want to buy such number of beams for such number of Litecoin or Bitcoin or Ethereum or USDT or whatever. So I post it, and then someone in the future might take this specific order, not part of it, not two orders, but only one-to-one order. And the other way, I can do it completely off the book, off the board. I can create an offer and send to my counterparty, which I find my counterparty elsewhere by another mechanism. I can send him kind of a trading token, and he can use this trading token to fulfill the swap in a completely unknown way, unlisted way.
Obviously, these swaps are also completely private on the Beam side, so nobody knows like who you are, or there is no information revealed about you, and there is no link between the Bitcoin side and the Beam side. So basically, you do see that swap happened on the Bitcoin side, but there is no information linking you to what happened on Beam.
Guys, let's start discussing privacy, right? Because this is a huge topic, and the more I start reading about what's happening with the development of CBDCs, which is for our viewers, central bank digital currencies, it's turning from something that, oh yeah, it's nice to have privacy, to something that, wow, a world without it seems pretty doom and gloom. So let me paint you the cute picture of what our current public open blockchains allow for now, and what not having privacy really means in the background, right? So for now, it's very cute to go into a .eth address of someone and check him out on OpenSea and start seeing all the catalog of his NFTs, and so that's kind of, we've kind of accepted in this Web3 world that our accounts are public, the blockchain's public. There it is. Anyone can see all my transactions. And even if you try to kind of obfuscate it by creating different addresses, if you go backward enough, you always can trace everything to this Genesis address that you use to create those addresses. So at the end of the road, there is no privacy whatsoever in open public blockchains. And now that is something that can become really scary when we start talking about CBDCs. And why do I mention it? Because if we have a programmable fiat currency that is controlled by a central authority, either the government or the central bank, and you have a particular, taste or set of opinions, or you have supported, or teamed up with someone that, the government deems as, someone dangerous, or someone that is not trustworthy, they can just shut down your account. We've seen that. We don't have to go China and North Korea for this. We can actually look at what happened in Canada, right, with the trucker protests, that they just shut down not only their bank accounts and their way to transact, but they also frozen the accounts of people who try to support them and send them a couple $100 to pay for the next meal. So we can already start to understand the dangers of not having a privacy layer for our transactions. I want to understand better, what do you think we as a society have not yet haven't understood yet to the core? Like, why isn't it like common sense that we want to transact mostly in a private way?
I think take China as kind of a precursor to what will happen eventually in the rest of the world, and all the talk about forcing their CDBC, and then the social scoring system, depending on what you buy and how you behave, you will get tickets to planes or not. or whatever. So and later on, no, it's not privacy related, but CDBC can be programmed to force you to spend. Yes, and they are talking about the fact that digital yuan, will expire after after a period if you won't use it. So I think people in the West are not yet comprehending the big issues with CBDC and the fact that the government, scoring agency, whatever, will be able to see whatever you buy, either online or offline, and kind of profile you. Facebook to the third power. So and we at least in BIM we try to create a different kind of world. Recently, some unknown team released a beta, or it's actually an alpha, of a private stablecoin called Nefarious on top of BIM, in which everything is private. So fully collateral private stablecoin that can track. I'm not sure what it's tracking right now, but it can track whatever currency or whatever asset you want. So I think that privacy will become more and more important to people. There will be a wake up, and I hope that there will be enough interesting tools, enough useful tools in cryptocurrencies to enable transacting privately. It needs to be like that. The private peoples should have maximum privacy, and no. So the question is, what about taxation?
I think all people should have privacy, and to your point,
and governments should have full transparent, except maybe defense budget, but everything else should be fully transparent for government.
But listen, I think all of us, our modern society has not been yet aware of the importance of privacy, because so far there have not been yet so many actions taken with the data that all the platforms that we use are accumulating, right? So until now, the killer use case for our data has been to selling us stuff and showing us ads and selling our data to publishers and people that want to sell us stuff. Okay,
and the great divide in the politics systems is not out of this data. All the stuff that's happening, Republicans and Democrats, and in Israel and many other countries, it's all out of probably social networks and the fact that they are able to fine tune what information they are feeding you. So it's
but my point is that we haven't yet seen the extent of the action that can be taken by having all your transactional data on record. So when you can apply a certain data point of your transaction that you transacted with this guy, or you're transacting outside of the geolocation that we detected you that you should be on, or for example, a very thing that drives it home for people, that hey, you have exceeded your quota of meal consumption this week. Please apply a vegetarian, more ESG friendly option. I think when people start understanding that this can limit our freedom of location, where do we move to, our freedom of nutrition, what do we feed ourselves, our freedom of consumption, of entertainment, our freedom of relationships, who do we hang out with, like it's an all-encompassing system that can be implanted in the world. I don't want to speak too much in the doomsday scenario, but
you won't own anything and you will be happy about that, and you will eat bugs for breakfast. So yes,
Mr. Carl Schwab himself, right? That's his master plan. So So what do we do about it, guys? I want to go a bit into what happened with Tornado Cash and the bit of the fight back that we're seeing from governments to privacy teams. And I really appreciate you guys being forward and being here with me. So what do you think is going on there? What are we up against?
So first of all, like, when you understand that you really need privacy, usually it's too late. And I think the example of the Tornado Cache is a great one because of two things. So first of all, obviously, like, I'm not going to repeat the entire story, but it was the first time in history that a smart contract was actually added to the OFAC list of sanctioned entities. Before that, it was usually either individuals, organizations, and if it was addresses on blockchain, it was custodial addresses. So it was for the first time where non-custodial smart contract was added. And mostly the reason for that was, in my opinion, because they did not understand how it works. But once it was done, it was already too late. The second interesting point about this story is the speed in which a lot of different organizations reacted to the news. I mean, obviously, yes, you have exchanges, regulated entities, and such that can no longer accept transactions from these addresses. But the code was removed from GitHub. The developer was landed in jail without being presented any accusation. He's still there for a month and a half. In Holland, from all places,
because there's nothing to accuse him of, right? It's totally like an unlawful move because he just contributed to an open source software.
So yeah, once again, like this story, I don't have enough information, but let's say I do not believe that authorities in Netherlands just sat near the radio and monitored the news, and when they heard on the news that Tornado Cache was added to this list, they just said, "Oh, listen, we think one of the developers is on our soil." I'm sure it was a coordinated action, but that's not even the point. The point is that what happened was very, very quick, and even organizations that did not receive any official notice that they should do anything did it anyway, right? So you cannot really trust these kind of parties to be on the side of err towards protection of your privacy or your freedom or your rights, but rather they would rather act quickly in order to avoid, GitHub is owned by Microsoft, just to avoid any potential backlash whatsoever, to be on the safe side. Let's remove their code, let's remove the accounts of the developers, and then we will see what we're doing about free speech and all of the other rights that were violated in the process. Now, what Beam is trying to do in this domain, and when I say this domain, it's like kind of more general than just transactions, because Beam today has, as we mentioned, a DeFi ecosystem, smart contracts, a lot of different services that are implemented on top of the platform. We're trying to give people an option to preserve their right to privacy, to decide whether and which information should be disclosed to which party, and not to sit patiently and wait, like when all of this open information in the blockchain today is misused, and in which way. So by the way, one of the things that keep kind of amazing me is that every once in a while, a person of prominence, whether it's Vitalik Buterin or like other people, speak up about privacy. Every once in a while, you hear like, "Oh, and by the way, we should add privacy to Ethereum. We should add privacy to Bitcoin. We should do this and that." And it's kind of immediately moved aside in order to be replaced with other kind of also important goals, moving to proof of stake, adding transaction speed, whatever. And the privacy is always treated as like very kind of secondary goal. And in my opinion, it's going to be very problematic in the near future, because as I said, privacy is something that you need, backwards. The goal is not to be private starting from this moment. The goal is to be like private all the way. Otherwise, when you need privacy, all of the information is already on chain. And I just have to remind you that it's all permanently on chain, right? It's not going anywhere. It's a permanent ledger. So people have all the time in the world to try to kind of connect between the dots, which is why, by the way, in Beam, there are no recording of the addresses on chain, and like the information is not traceable backward, which is very important. Yeah, I think one of the reasons is that for the most part, for the recent years, especially in DeFi, for example, most of the trades were treated for like speculative reason, making profit, all of these kinds of things. And these people are less interested in privacy, except for probably taxes. But in general, when you think about having non-private DeFi, it scares me. Like everybody can see my transactions. I can be front-run, I can be well-hunted, I can be robbed, right? And I'm not talking about like rug pull, but basically MEV. What's MEV? That's exactly that. Everybody knows what you're doing, and they're just monitoring it. That is sitting on the mempool, and doing all this. So this is like, in my opinion, something that
MEV for our viewers is a minor extractable value, and it's a very big topic. It has been discussed. We're going to get into it further, but it's basically the maximization of profit by the miners.
But it's not miners anymore. It's, I think they changed it to maximum extracted value or something like that, because proof of stake.
Well, yes, but I yeah, of course. But the point is, when there you have node validators sitting on as the gatekeepers for transactions, and they can you have a token weighted transaction based model in which expensive transactions or people who are paying more fees basically get a priority on the transaction queue, then you're motivated to prioritize a higher fee paying transaction, right? And that's what we were trying to solve with EOS, but we're not even going to go there. But the fact is that when you have an incentive to prioritize higher value transactions, you can also have an incentive to understand what's behind the transaction, and you can, if it's valuable enough, you can also, in case of an exchange of a high purchase, a high value purchase of a token or something, you can also front run it and submit a higher fee based transaction that front runs that operation and ends up basically screwing up that simple user. So that is, I think, what MEV stands for in a nutshell. Or you can correct me if I'm wrong.
No, you're absolutely correct. And by the way, like when we're on the topic of Ethereum and the recent upgrade or switch to proof of stake, the issue with privacy becomes even more kind of relevant and interesting, because these validators, most of them, they are controlled through the pools by regulated entities and companies. Some of them are like under US regulations. All of them, I think, all the top validators that control over 67% of the network right now are regulated entities. And this means both in terms of censorship of transactions and the information that they receive, right? It's a very interesting topic. The process of creating these blocks is probably a topic for another hour, because we want to talk about privacy more. But I do encourage everyone to look into that, like how these blocks are created and what it means today in terms of censorship resistance and privacy. Like there are a lot of issues there that were not addressed during the recent merge, and it's going to get worse in the near future.
So how do you guys, let's think a bit tactical here, okay? How do we create an alternative that at the same time is private, but that can also live in a world that's becoming more totalitarian and more authoritarian, and we're seeing how this is being struggled. And I ask you guys this specifically because you have somehow find a way to make, for one, being totally private, but at the same time traded in a lot of centralized exchanges like Binance, for example, and other exchanges. So they have they have come to the conclusion that yes, although Beam is a private blockchain and allows for privacy, we can still, you're being compliant in some way. So how does that, how does that work?
I will start with that, and then Guy will explain his opinion, or at least part of it. So first of all, Beam supports the concept of opt-in auditability. It was supported from the very beginning, and with each new feature, we kind of maintain this support. And it means that when a user wants to disclose any information about himself or herself that they like or want to disclose to third party, there is a way to do that, which is mathematically provable to be connected to a confidential blockchain. So, for example, if I receive a transaction, I can always decide to provide a transaction proof that this transaction actually occurred, and it can be, because it's signed by both parties, it can be including documents or invoices or any other sort of information that I want, and it will be cryptographically linked to the transaction that you can see on the blockchain, right? So it's a very important point, because eventually we realize that in practical terms, whether you are a business or an individual, you may want to comply with certain regulations, and you need to have a way to do so. However, it's completely opt-in, which means that it's your decision, it's your control. There is no way to gather this information without your consent and without your explicit will to provide it, okay?
So if if they go and force Binance to have a super strict KYC and deliver data on all their transactions, if a user goes to Binance to buy Beam and then withdraws it, is that basically doxing their address, or if Binance does opt into to being
not at all. The user needs to want and to dox himself. It's Binance cannot do that. Cannot force it. But Binance in general is a bit more relaxed. I think there are other privacy coins in Binance as well, Zcash and maybe even Monero, I'm not sure. So it's not that big of a deal to be listed as a privacy coin in Binance. We do have opt-in auditability. It's not for the third party. It's for me, for myself to release transaction information. Not all of it is exposed yet through user level tools. So it's possible, but not all of it is actually implemented. But I do want to go back to something else that we are working on, in relating to Tornado Cash. So even before Tornado Cash incident, we kind of noticed that prominent Bitcoin developers are quitting. Jonas Schnelli, and that was last year, and recently even more prominent developers, and some of them say they are burned out. Some of them are saying that they are afraid of being sued by Craig Wright, and in general, it kind of become apparent that being a doxed Bitcoin developer is not a good practice. And we thought about it, and we started to work on interesting. It's not a spin-off, but it's an additional product that can be used on top of Beam, but can be used on top of other blockchains. And it's called Source. It's kind of a decentralized GitHub. It gives you all the stuff that you can do with GitHub, but it's completely decentralized. The storage runs on IPFS. The transactions can be stored privately on blockchain, and you can decide as a developer if you want to show your contributions, the stuff that you worked on, or you can work privately. So that's something, another thing that we came to understand that needs to be improved and needs to have better privacy.
So yeah, just to expand on that point, Source is actually kind of a great example of how Beam blockchain and technology can be used outside of just financial area. And we consider it a pure Web3 project. It's being incubated by Beam Foundation, and we provide technical support. And the project has a separate kind of founders that are working on the business and the marketing side. And this is a great example because when you say privacy, like it's not just finance, right? A lot of things. And the recent example was GitHub, I think, was absolutely illustrative of that point. Like not only you want to be able to do some things anonymously. You also want to have control of your contributions. You don't want to be deplatformed. You don't want to be censored. And this is exactly the point where Web3 provides all of these benefits. And this is the value proposition of Web3 in general. So Beam has always been taking these things very seriously. Everything we're doing is trying to achieve, the best possible decentralization. It takes time. It's very, very difficult to do. Not everything can be done at once. But, we never play or, this kind of decentralized game. We really strive to achieve it. And Sources is another example of how you can take these concepts of privacy, decentralization, and blockchain and tokenomics and bring them together to solve a real world problem. So yeah, it's a great project. Definitely look into it.
So guys, be sure to drop us a link there. We'll obviously dig in more. Now, I always try to bring a lot of value to our listeners and to our viewers, and so I want you guys to drop a few alpha drops here and tell our viewers and our followers, how does one increase their own privacy in Web3? And the caveat here is you cannot say you buy Beam and use their blockchain. So what are some best practices in general that you would advise our viewers to be more aware of their privacy, to understand where they're being recorded, their transactions being and how can they increase their privacy practices?
Romanov, take it, please.
Sure. Yeah. So it's a great question. Definitely not a simple one, and there are several things that are related, I would say, both to privacy and also to security that you can do. And first of all, you should be aware. The awareness is the first point of taking any meaningful steps. What I mean by awareness is to understand exactly which information about you is gathered, can be theoretically gathered by third parties. Many people do not realize that. And as a result, they are either unpleasantly surprised some point in the future, or they run into all kinds of troubles with whether it's like just third parties that can misuse or abuse the information that they're provided, can be all kinds of behaviors, like from criminals or like people who just try to rob you through rug pulls or whatever. So it's very important to understand that all the transactions that you're doing on private blockchains can be linked. And even if you follow the strictest possible separation between wallets, and you have one wallet for this and one wallet for that, eventually, at some point, it will be possible to link you. And once it's done, even once, if you have one mistake, that's it, because it can be from the blockchain that stores everything forever, extrapolate it and basically disclose your entire history of transactions. So that's one point. The second point is like operational security in general. So if you are using Web3 applications, blockchains, you should be very careful, because it's your responsibility for your keys, for the information about you. And, we all know that most hacks are or many hacks involve social engineering and phishing for passwords.
Yeah, they don't need to hack the protocol when they can socially dupe the lead developer that has access to that same.
Absolutely. So yeah, in most cases, hacking the protocol is not needed to get your secrets. And this is the second point, think about what you're doing and make all the necessary steps to protect yourself. By the way, I think, and this is kind of the general point outside the privacy, I think there is way too little education for people in crypto, blockchain, and Web3 world, because if you are new to this area, you will have to discover most of the things yourself. Very few kind of online courses are offered about how to protect yourself from these things. The third point, which is directly related, by the way, to what Source is doing, is when you are using any smart contracts whatsoever, DeFi or any other, you always need to be careful who owns these contracts, how decentralized really are they? Like, for example, in a couple of days ago, there was an article that said that about 50,000 NFT contracts have centralized key that allows their owners to take all of your money, all of your funds, and do whatever they want with them. Nobody cares, right? So one of the points that Source is trying to solve is to be able to implement this, we call it internally for now, like know your developer approach, that when you're looking on the smart contract, you will know what is in the team that developed them. And you don't necessarily need to know their identities, but you need to know their record, their reputation. And it's very important to understand what you're getting into, like what's that smart contract that you're deploying to. Once again, like it's kind of all around this privacy, security, and the less they know, the better you sleep. That's what I say.
That's awesome. Thank you, Alex. All right, guys, and that I think the last thing I want to have an insight from you guys is on terms. I'm creating this podcast for builders and creators in the Web3 space, and you have been at it for years. So that means you've endured. You built something amazing. You have users. You're also offering a free market alternative to something that's super valuable, as we discussed here. So what would be your three key takeaways for builders and entrepreneurs that want to get into Web3, and they maybe don't have all the technical expertise, but they really want to build something meaningful? And how do you guys go about it? So you can either go through the avoid this and that mistakes, or focus on this and this part for building a successful Web3 business.
Guy,
you want to take this?
No, please
begin. No, okay.
I still didn't build a successful Web3 business, so no, I'm not sure.
Well, you're way more. You're a few steps, ahead of most people that are starting.
Don't do NFT collection.
Okay, avoid PFP NFT projects. That's a good one. Okay.
So, like, if you're a builder in Web3 space, I would say, what I value in Web3 projects personally, first of all, is the values, right? If you say decentralized, please make sure you understand what it means and you actually follow what you are preaching. Do not abuse these words. Do not try to kind of mislead people into thinking that something is decentralized when it really isn't, or at least make them aware.
Decentralized is actually a range. It's not a 1-0 value. Right?
Absolutely.
There's nothing that's 100% decentralized. Otherwise, nobody does anything with it. And there's, so there's always a range in which decentralization lies. Now, you can have an ethos that strives towards being it more decentralized and eliminating a central point of failure. But you can never have something purely 100% decentralized.
No, I totally agree. But in many cases, this word is, kind of used very freely and frivolously, without providing any kind of explanation or warning, like what it exactly means.
It uses the buzzword.
Yep. And this is unfortunate because a lot of people, take things at their face value when they really should do more research. And this brings me to the second point. Think about your community, think about your users, try to kind of make things as transparent as possible for them. I'm not talking about disclosing, but obviously kind of try to create a situation in which the user knows the difference between what is trusted and what is not, right? Like it's okay to trust an organization or a project in some specific aspects, but this number of trust points should be reduced, which means always open your source, always provide independent audits, like try to involve your community in kind of decision making or process that at least explains why you're doing what you're doing, right? So this kind of increases the transparency and increases as a result the quality of the project, and the involvement of the community, which is very important in my opinion.
I think you're touching a very, very important point, Alex, because we're so used to receiving a black block, a white box from Apple, open it up, seeing the shining screen and going, oh, this is beautiful. And that's the Web2 approach, right? This is a product, eat it, use it, enjoy it, and don't ask questions, right? And
exactly.
And I think that's a switch that founders and entrepreneurs have to do in Web3. Whereas you're putting an idea out into the world. You're building it, and then you're setting it free and then giving the means of productions to your community. And that's a switch that's very tough to do from a lot of entrepreneurs that comes from Web2.
For me, it was an absolute, shift because I never worked on a proper open source project before. It was very different for me. It took me a lot of time to get used to the fact that everybody sees what we're doing on a daily basis and can monitor that, can see that. But I have come to realize that it's probably one of the most important things, right? It's kind of the exact opposite of the black box. Because the last thing you want to find out when you open finally at some point your black box, is exactly what's been going on there, as we see a lot of examples these days with quite a lot of black boxes. So yeah, definitely. I totally agree. Anything else you can think of, Guy?
Guys, you wanna cover something else before we wrap things up?
Try to tackle real problem. If you're going to do the Web3, don't try to repackage some Web2 idea, but try to innovate and find something that really bring value to the user, and think how to building a product that the community can participate and build it with you.
Definitely, guys. Listen, this has been an amazing episode, and thank you so much for giving me the opportunity, because we're just starting out. And I want to leave our audience with a famous Edward Snowden quote, which says, "Arguing that you don't care about privacy because you have nothing to say or nothing to hide is no different than saying you don't care about free speech because you have nothing to say." So if you've ever felt that you've been shut up and you don't like it, so you should start taking care of develop that same awareness if you're being spied on and watched for your every little bit of transaction on the blockchain.
Everyone should care about privacy, not only transaction or money-related privacy, but every aspect of privacy. Hernan, thank you very much for the opportunity to participate in your podcast. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you very much.
It's been Alex, great. Thank you for having me.
This has been amazing. Thank you very much. We'll ping back again soon, and we'll resume our step and running sessions. We should have started with that. We've been all going on walks with the step and app. This is not a shill, but this is just a new move to earn thing.
Soon stepping over beam.
Yeah,
the guy is working on it.
Yeah, that's got to be funny if you guys figure out how to track your geolocation and where you're walking, and at the same time having that being private.
Yeah, he's working.
Anyway, all right, guys, this has been lovely. Thank you very much. And creators, take a listen to these guys, and take care of your privacy. Go watch, log into Beam. Find out more about them, and see you very soon on the next episode.
Bye-bye.
Please keep in mind that none of what's said in this podcast should be considered financial advice. You are strongly recommended to do your own research and do not take anything we say in this podcast as a recommendation to buy or sell any assets whatsoever.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Web3 Creators Podcast. Make sure you follow us on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and all of your favorite platforms. And if you're serious about building your own Web3 business, head over to web3creatordojo.com and check out our courses. That's web3creatordojo.com. See you soon, creators.